Hey everyone, this is Elliot with Modern Music Studio. Today we're going to be doing a little walkthrough and a demo of the Apollo X4 by Universal Audio. This Apollo comes with 4 Unison preamps as well as 2 high-Z instrument inputs on the front side of the Apollo. This allows you to track in real time using the legendary plugins made by Universal Audio, such as the LA2A by Teletronics, the Struder A80 tape machine, and one of my favorites, the Pure Plate Reverb, which we'll be using a little bit today in this demo. The Apollo X4 uses a Thunderbolt 3 cable to connect from the interface to your computer. A really cool part about using the Thunderbolt 3 cable is you can also charge your computer without needing to add an extra charging cable to it. So just a few things about the hardware. You have 4 inputs on the back. They are both line and mic, as well as 2 inputs on the front, which are both just instrument. Unfortunately, you cannot use all 6 at the same time. You can only use 4 due to the fact that it only has 4 preamps in it. But I think 4 is plenty for what most people are going to be using at 4. It also has 2 separate headphone outs. This allows you to send separate mixes to your artists if you're recording 2 artists. Another really cool thing about the Apollo is that it comes with a built-in talkback mic. So no need for one of these guys, you can just click the talkback and it has a great mic in it and you'll be able to talk to your talent, whether they're in another room or somewhere else if you aren't like chilling in a home studio. I think it's pretty cool. The Apollo X4 also comes with the real-time Analog Classics plugin bundle from Universal Audio. This includes awesome analog emulators such as the Teletronics LA2A, the 1176, the Fairchild 670 compressors, Holtec EQs, and more. Alright, now I'm going to go through and explain these buttons on the Apollo, as well as a couple of these inputs on the front and the back, just to kind of give you a closer look at what I was talking about. So we're going to start on the right side of the Apollo, and you have these 2 buttons, preamp, monitor, as well as this giant knob right here. You're mainly going to be messing with these 2 and the knob when you're recording, because this is kind of your gain control, what the artist will be hearing out of our headphone outs, as well as what you will be hearing out of your speakers. Then we're going to start with monitor. So when you click monitor, it comes through kind of these 3 different options: headphone 1, headphone 2, and monitor. And they're pretty self-explanatory. When you're on headphone 1, you are choosing the volume that is going out of your first headphone jack here. So if the artist wants it louder, you're going to turn it down and you'll notice the gain knob here, or the gain indicator, or you can turn it up depending on what they want. Same goes for headphone 2. Now we're plugged into this guy on the right, the second headphone output, and we can turn it up or turn it down accordingly. Lastly, you have your monitor section. The Apollo has 2 outs, a left and a right in the back, that are labeled monitor, and this monitor here is what's going to be feeding your speakers. So when you have that one selected, you are also able, just like the headphone outs, to be able to change the gain or the volume going to your speakers. So our next button is the preamp button. When you click preamp, you'll notice we switch over to this section of the Apollo's graphic interface, and it says channel 1 here. When you click it again, you have channel 2, 3, and 4. Coming back to channel 1, you'll notice that it's the same kind of setup as the monitors. The knob will control the gain of that mic. So as you go up, you'll notice that your gain here is going to go up. And as you get too loud, we start to clip. So just make sure you're not clipping at any point. You don't ever want to go near that red. But same concept for the rest of these channels. So those are the 2 buttons on the right, preamp and monitor. And again, like I said before, you're going to mainly be messing with these 2 buttons and the knob while you're using the Apollo. All of these buttons over here are kind of your initial setup for when you start recording. Once you kind of have them set, you're not really going to mess with them too much. So our first button on the left side is input. When you click input, or when you turn the Apollo on, it's going to default to this mic setting. This means that the input is coming from the back, one of these XLR inputs that are in the back of the Apollo. When you click it again, it's going to say line. Line refers to either these two in front or the line ins in the back. Do note that channels 3 and 4 are not going to be able to take the line from the input or in the front side of the Apollo. These go to lines 1 and 2, or channels 1 and 2. You'll notice when you click line, you're going to lose a bunch of options here. That's because microphone inputs have a lot more options, essentially. So going to our next button, or our next button here, while we're on line, you have a low pass or a high pass filter on it. This is just going to roll off the low end. If you don't want any like really low rumbles or something, you're probably going to want it for like a vocal mic or even guitar. Probably not a bass guitar. And then you have a phase flipper and a lake, but we're gonna go on to lake a little bit later. So moving on to mic, we have a few more options here. We have a plus 48V. This is referring to 48 volt phantom power. You will click this and turn it on when you are using a phantom powered mic, which is also known as a condenser mic. When you click it, do note that it's going to blink for a minute and then either turn off or turn on. It's not either off or on while it's blinking. It's kind of like getting ready to turn on and powering up. I don't really know how to explain it, but just make sure you don't record until it is either lit up or turned off. Our next button is a pad. All a pad is doing is it's dropping the input down quite a bit. So if you're recording a snare drum or a very loud instrument, and no matter how low you turn the preamp volume, you might need to turn the pad on to get it to stop clipping. And like we said before, we have a phase flipper here. So our last button that we're going to talk about here is this link button over here. What link does is it links two channels together, making one channel a left channel and one channel a right channel. Notice when I click it, channels 3 and 4 are both now lit up. If I were to switch back to channel 1, it's its own channel, channel 2 is its own channel, but 3 and 4 are both synced and lit up now. When you link two channels together, anything you do to channel 3 is also going to happen on channel 4. So if I were to turn it down, channel 4 is turning down and channel 3 is turning down, same as you go up. And just keep that in mind. Linked channels are especially useful when you're recording, say, an electric piano. They usually have two outs, a left and a right. It's also super awesome when you're recording an acoustic piano and you have two mics. So keep it in mind, and that's how it's gonna work. One last thing that I forgot to mention before I move on to using this with software is when you click monitor, you have a few options under here as well. You have a talk. This enables talkback mode. I'm not going to click it now because it'll make my voice really quiet, but it'll send my voice pretty loud to the headphones that are plugged in. You also have a ding, and then you have a mono, which will sum your entire mix to mono. If you're mixing, summing to mono is kind of a really good thing to check to see if there's any phasing happening. And then you have a mute button. Mute is pretty straightforward. It's going to mute your audio. All right, so now that we've gone through the Apollo hardware, let's go through how the software is going to work. I'm going to be using Ableton Live for this demonstration, but Apollo works great with all other DAWs such as Pro Tools, Logic, Fruity Loops, and it also comes with Universal Audio's own Luna. But without any further ado, let's hop into it. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're not going to go too deep into a lot of this stuff, only what I think matters to get you kind of up and running and starting to record right away. So console is kind of where you're going to be able to see everything that is coming through the Apollo X4. So I'm going to start on the right side as I did with the hardware itself. This right here is going to be your output, what's coming out of the Apollo. You can see as I'm talking, pop. It can get louder, quieter. This is just your main output. Try not to hit that red. So on this part, we're going to go to show. Show gives you the ability to see your aux mixes. So aux 1 and aux 2, as well as your control room, which will be your talkback mic, as well as your dim and your source for your main mix here. Think of your control room as the recording engineer's room. Like this source right here is what's playing through the outs, left and right, or your monitor mix here. So if I were to click Q1, you wouldn't be able to hear my voice because I'd be sending Q1 right here to the monitors. Same with Q2. So for now, I'm going to turn these off because we don't need to go into this right now. And next, we're going to go to our Q outputs. Q outputs, I mainly use these for the headphone outs, headphones 1 and 2. You'll notice you have a source, a mix, a mirror to output, and an Apollo X4 section. The Apollo X4 section just says, do you want to send this mix to headphone 1 or headphone 2? I don't really ever mess with mirror to outputs. We'll go into that later. Mix, you can sum it to mono. I wouldn't really do that, but you can if you need to. And then we have mix and Q1 for your source. What's cool about this is kind of where we're going to get into sending separate sounding mixes to your artists. So say you're recording a piano player and a guitarist, and the piano player has a vocal mic. The piano player might want to hear more of the vocal mic in their own headphones and their piano, whereas the guitarist might want to hear more of their own guitar and the piano in their headphones. So this is where we'd be able to send separate mixes and give the artist a little bit more of what they want to give them a better feeling for when they're performing, which ultimately gives you a better performance. And that's what you want as a mixing engineer. Output is our next section here. We have mono and mute. All of these buttons, or not all of them, but these two buttons are actually on the Apollo itself. So if I were to hit mute, you'll notice when I hit mute on the Apollo, it turns on the mute here. Same with mono. So I wouldn't really use them here. I'd probably use them here. Depends on how quick you are and if you're going to blow your speakers up, what's the fastest way to stop feedback from happening, if that's why you're hitting the mute button. Okay, so now that we've gone through that section, let's go through the actual channels themselves. For the purpose of this, we're not going to be talking about SPDIF or virtual at all. We're mainly just going to be looking at analog 1, analog 2, and these aux outputs at a certain point. What's really unique about Universal Audio and the Apollos is that you're able to use the Universal Audio plugins in real time, which means that you can record them and have the singer or the artist hear the plugin in their headphones as they're recording into the Apollo. This is amazing because you can, with a lot of software such as Ableton, if you use a third-party plugin while you're recording, there might be a little bit of a delay between when the microphone input hits the Apollo, hits your laptop, goes back to the Apollo, and then back to the artist's headphones, causing it'll mess up the artist because it won't be exactly synced up to when they're singing. There might be a delay for when they hear their voice back in their headphone. So that's what makes Apollo really awesome in my opinion, as well as it just sounds amazing. So now we've gone through a little bit about this, let's actually go into the Ableton side really quick, and then we'll pop back over to the console in a second. So coming to Ableton, here are the two tracks that I've recorded already for this demonstration, but if I wanted to record again, there's a few things you have to make sure you've done. So audio input device, make sure you selected Universal Audio Thunderbolt. And if you're going to be using the Apollo to go to your speakers, or if you're going to be sending a headphone mix at all, you're also going to need your output to be Universal Audio Thunderbolt. Currently, I just have my stereo outs as 1 and 2, and my mono inputs as 1 and 2. This means that 3 and 4, numbers 3 and 4 on the back of the Apollo, are not going to work if they're not turned on. Ableton will not see these coming in until you turn them on. So just keep that in mind. Same with any of these. You'll need to turn them on if you want to send from the Apollo outputs in the back somewhere else, such as another pair of speakers or say monitors if you're doing a live set or something. So awesome. Now that we've done that and we've selected that, these external in, so when you create a new track, you'll notice external in channel 1 is what it defaults to. Channel 1, again, is this mic right here, not my lapel. You'll see that I have channel 2 right here. This is my lapel mic. So if I wanted to record something, I can just click somewhere, make sure that my record button is enabled, start playing and hit record, and you can see my voice right here recording. What's up? So it's that simple. As long as you have everything set up the way I just explained, you're able to record. And when you hit playback, that recording you just hit, and you hit play, it will play through the Apollo into your monitors. And that's kind of just the basic setup of how the Apollo X4 is going to work in recording. I do want to go into something really cool about it, which is a slightly more advanced feature, and I've mentioned it previously, and that is going to be using the 2 headphone outputs separately. So to do this, there's a couple things we need to look at. We're first going to come back over to the console, and we're going to drop down to this far left corner that says settings. And then once you're in console settings, we're going to come to I/O matrix. And now it seems a little more intimidating than you'd think at first, but once you kind of understand what's happening, it will make more sense. So I want to send a separate mix to my left headphone and a separate mix to my right headphone. And we're going to use something called cues. And we have Q1 left, Q1 right, Q2 left, and Q2 right. In this matrix, these are labeled as channel 17, 18, 19, and 20. You are not going to have to mess with anything in here for now, but you may at some point. So just keep in mind you can click on this and change stuff here. If you, we'll actually go into that in a second, but for now we're just going to leave it as is in the default mode, so you won't have to change anything. 17, 18, 19, and 20. Remembering those numbers, if we come back to Ableton and go to our preferences, we can go to channel configuration, output config, and turn on channels 17 and 18, 19 and 20. And you can go ahead and label these if you want. You can call this Q1/headphone 1. And the second one will be Q2/headphone 2. So now what we've done is we've enabled output 17 and 18, 19 and 20 to send from Ableton to the output 17, 18, 19 and 20 on the Apollo. And now we're going to click out of that and come back to the console. Again, you don't have to change anything in here with what I'm telling you right now. You just have to make sure your stuff is set up on Ableton the correct way. So now, coming back to Ableton, say you have a track. We're just going to insert an audio track right now, and we will throw on a simple tambourine thing for now. Imagine you've been recording an artist and they have different mixes, blah, blah. I don't have an artist right now to record, so we're going to use a sample. Ableton, the way you're going to send from Ableton to the headphone mixes is something called a return track in Ableton. So if you right click right here in this like kind of dark area, right click here and click insert return track. And you'll notice the return turns up here. We're going to do that 2 times. For return C, we're going to rename this as headphone 1. Return D will be headphone 2. So you'll notice when you created these 2 return tracks, C and D, you also created 2 new sends up here. So the way it's going to work is you're going to send the audio from this guy, this track right here, to headphone 1, which is C, and headphone 2, which is D. A, B, C, D. In case you ever get lost and you have way too many of these. because you can also use these as reverb tracks or delay tracks, as we have right here. But I'm not trying to go crazy right now. So we're just going to focus on headphone 1 right now. Now that we're at this point, there's one last thing you need to do to be able to send it to your headphones, and that is click this main right here, and you're going to choose external out. And now, if you remember earlier, we defined these two things, these two outputs in Ableton settings. I'm going to select Q1 headphone 1. Now that I have selected that and I play this track, so right now you're able to hear it because I'm sending this through the main outs of the console. Say I did not want to do that and I just wanted to send it to headphone 1. I will turn up my send however much I want to. This is essentially your volume. And that is now going to send to our Q1. So if I select Q output 1 and also select headphone 1, now that Q1, which we defined in Ableton, is sending to headphone 1. And you control the volume of that cue or the individual tracks of that cue from Ableton with this send right here. What's cool about this is you are now able to hear, you as the mixing engineer can control the mix in your control room, but you can also give your artist separate mixes. And it's the same thing goes for the second headphone out of the Apollo. And you just do the same thing here, select external out, channels 19 and 20. And now we're coming from this Q output section here. You can select headphone 2, source is Q2, and now you can change your, do whatever here to make it louder or quieter. And you can just continue that with whatever tracks you have. You are able to keep changing the volume and sending separate mixes. And there you go. That is a pretty much basic rundown of how you're going to use the Apollo. Thanks for watching our video. If you have any questions, please comment below and I'll make sure to answer them. As always, please like and subscribe and keep us on your radar.